God's chosen ones. You're not weird. You're wired for a higher frequency. There comes a moment in every spiritually gifted person's life when the question arises, not from arrogance, but from exhaustion. Why am I so different? Why do I feel things others don't? Why does it seem like the world doesn't understand me? If you've ever asked yourself those questions, you're not alone. You're not broken. You're not lost. And you're certainly not weird. You are wired, intentionally and divinely, for a higher frequency. The truth is, those who are chosen by God often don't fit into the systems, patterns, or conversations of this world. There's an invisible divide between what they carry within and what the world reflects around them. While others seem comfortable with shallow connections, meaningless chatter, and fleeting pleasures, you find yourself aching for depth, truth, and purpose. You feel energy in the room. You pick up on emotions others can't even identify. You sense things before they happen. You question what others accept blindly. And because of this, people may call you intense, too much, too quiet, or even strange. But in reality, you are spiritually tuned, operating on divine frequencies in a world that prefers static. Being wired for a higher frequency doesn't mean you're superior. It means you're sensitive. It means your soul responds to spiritual wavelengths, to things beyond the surface, to messages hidden between the lines. It means you are awake while others are still asleep. And that awakening comes with both beauty and burden. It opens your heart to deep love, but also deep pain. It connects you to the divine, but also isolates you from the familiar. It calls you forward, even when you're not ready. This world often resists what it cannot define. And when it doesn't understand you, it tries to label you misfit, rebel, loner, dreamer, outcast. But don't let those labels define you. You're not here to be understood by the masses. You're here to fulfill a mission that was whispered to your soul before you were born. A mission that requires silence, separation, and spiritual sensitivity. You weren't meant to blend in. You were meant to rise up, to light the path for others, to walk where few dare go. This speech isn't for everyone. It's for the spiritually attuned, the ones who felt out of place their whole lives, the ones who cry without knowing why, the ones who dream vividly, love deeply, and fall apart quietly, the ones who feel like aliens in their own families, in their own countries, even in their own skin. It's for you, the ones God chose, not because you were perfect, but because you were willing. So before you question your worth again, before you silence your voice or shrink your light to fit in, know this: you're not weird. You're just wired differently. You're operating on a frequency that this world can't decode, but heaven can. And that, my friend, is not something to be ashamed of. It's something to embrace. The pain of being different, when the world misunderstands your frequency. There's a particular kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone, but from constantly feeling unseen in a crowded room. It's the kind of ache that whispers to your soul, you don't belong here. Not because you've done something wrong, but because the world is operating on a different wavelength than the one you were born into. That is the quiet, invisible pain of being spiritually different, of carrying a higher frequency in a world addicted to noise, distraction, and surface-level living. From a young age, many of God's chosen ones can sense the disconnect. While other children chase after approval and applause, you may have found yourself staring at the stars, wondering why you felt like you came from somewhere else. While your friends could laugh easily at jokes that seemed empty to you, you were busy contemplating things far beyond your years: death, purpose, eternity, love. You didn't know the word frequency back then. You didn't know why you felt everything so deeply. You only knew that when the world was smiling, you were still asking questions. You were still listening for something more. Being misunderstood isn't new to you. It's not a phase. It's not a personality trait. It's a spiritual condition that comes with being marked by something holy. And the world, by its very nature, cannot comprehend what is holy. It tries to package it, label it, tame it, but when it can't, it calls it weird. When it can't control you, it calls you rebellious. When it can't numb your soul, it calls you overly emotional. But none of those labels are true. They're just the world's way of reacting to what it doesn't understand. You're not weird, you're awake. And your very awareness is unsettling to those still asleep. You may have tried to dim your light, just to feel a little more accepted. You've silenced your voice to avoid sounding too deep. You've laughed at things that made you uncomfortable, and stayed in rooms that drained your spirit, all because you didn't want to be the outsider again. But no matter how hard you tried to shrink, something in you kept glowing. Something kept rising. That's because you were never meant to fit in. You were designed to disrupt the patterns of this world, to disturb the comfortable and comfort the disturbed. The pain of being different doesn't just come from the outside. It also grows from within. There are days when even you don't understand yourself. You wonder why you can't just let things go like everyone else. Why you overthink. Why you cry during worship. Why certain songs bring you to your knees. Why you sense people's energy before they even speak. And sometimes, you question if something is wrong with you. Let me tell you, nothing is wrong with you. In fact, everything about you has been wired precisely, divinely, for a greater purpose. God doesn't make mistakes. What feels like too much to the world is actually just enough for the mission you carry. You feel pain deeply because you were made to heal. You ask questions constantly because you were made to seek truth. You feel restless in normal routines because you were never meant for the ordinary. And while others may mock your intensity or distance themselves from your light, that doesn't mean you are broken. It means you're rare. It means your soul remembers something this world has forgotten, its connection to the divine. But I won't pretend it's easy. Being different hurts. It's tiring to constantly explain yourself. It's exhausting to be too spiritual for your friends, but not religious enough for your church. It's frustrating to have insights no one asked for, or to carry wisdom that feels more like a burden than a blessing. Some days, you might wish you could unfeel, unknow, unsee. But deep down, you know you wouldn't trade your awareness for their comfort. Because even in the pain, even in the isolation, you know you are being led somewhere higher. The truth is, many of the world's most powerful spiritual vessels were outcasts before they were leaders. Prophets weren't popular. Saints weren't safe. And the chosen ones were rarely chosen by people. They were chosen by God. And that divine selection doesn't come with a crown. It often comes with a cross. It's a path of rejection, surrender, and discipline. But it's also a path of power, truth, and sacred calling. When the world misunderstands you, it's easy to fall into self-doubt. But what if the rejection wasn't personal? It was prophetic. What if being misunderstood wasn't a curse? It was confirmation. What if your pain is simply the weight of your assignment, pressing on your shoulders, shaping you, preparing you for impact? You are not here to convince the world to love you. You are here to become who God designed you to be. The loneliness, the alienation, the emotional storms, they are not punishments. They are invitations. Invitations to go deeper, to go higher, to go inward and find that sacred voice that speaks not from fear, but from divine knowing. So if you've been walking through life wondering why no one sees you clearly, take heart. God does. If you've been praying for a place to belong, remember this. Your belonging was never meant to be found in crowds. It was always meant to be found in calling. And that calling may not always be comfortable, but it will always be holy. You were never meant to be average. You were never meant to settle. You were never meant to dim your frequency just to be accepted by people who can't even hear the music your soul is dancing to. You were born to be different, for a reason, for a season, for a purpose. So embrace the pain of being different. Let it shape you. Let it strengthen you. Because in that pain is proof. You were never meant to follow the world. You were chosen to lead it, by example, by love, by truth, by light. Divine design, you're not broken, you're built for a higher calling. There is a quiet lie that tries to take root in the hearts of the chosen. The belief that something must be wrong with them. When you don't think like others, speak like others, react like others, you begin to wonder if you're flawed, damaged in some unspoken way. And when the world doesn't affirm your uniqueness, it's easy to mistake your divine design for dysfunction. But I'm here to tell you this. You are not broken. You are built, crafted by the hands of the Creator, for something far greater than you've been taught to expect. Everything about you was designed with intention. Your sensitivity? It wasn't a flaw, it was a signal receiver. Your restlessness? Not a disorder, but a divine compass pointing you away from comfort and toward calling. Your tears, your dreams, your ability to see through people's words into their wounds. None of that is accidental. That is spiritual architecture. That is heaven's fingerprint. You are wired for depth in a shallow world. That's not a mistake, it's strategy. God did not call you to blend in, because you were born to be a disruptor. You weren't meant to echo culture. You were meant to challenge it. And challenging it requires tools the world doesn't value: discernment, empathy, spiritual sight, inner conviction. So if you've ever felt too intense, too emotional, too deep, remember this: those very traits are weapons in a spiritual war. They are not liabilities. They are the reason darkness fears your awakening. You see, the enemy doesn't waste time attacking what is ordinary. He reserves his fiercest battles for those with the highest potential. If you've been under pressure, under scrutiny, under fire, it's not because you're weak. It's because you're marked. The anointing on your life is real. It radiates through your voice, your presence, your silence, your scars. And that anointing threatens systems, exposes lies, and disrupts darkness, often without you even trying. That's why people react to you without understanding why. That's why rooms shift when you walk in. It's not your ego. It's your energy. It's the frequency of God's presence flowing through someone who was built for something higher. And let's be honest, being built differently comes with a price. It often means walking alone, misunderstood, and doubted even by those closest to you. But let me tell you something sacred. Every chosen one in Scripture experienced a period of isolation before elevation. Moses was hidden in a desert. David was dismissed in a field. Joseph was thrown in a pit. Esther was orphaned and unknown. But in every case, God was working behind the scenes, shaping the vessel for the assignment. So if you're in your desert, your pit, your waiting season, don't despise it. You're not being punished. You're being positioned. God hides his most powerful weapons until the exact moment they are needed. And that includes you. You were built for purpose, not popularity. For impact, not imitation. That's why you don't think like the crowd. That's why you question things others accept. That's why you can't stay silent when injustice reigns. That's why you feel a holy discontent every time you're around anything fake, shallow, or spiritually dead. That's because you are alive in a different way. You're not functioning from ego. You're moving from eternity. And eternity is always louder than this temporary world. And let's talk about that calling. The one you've tried to ignore, silence, or explain away. It doesn't go away, does it? It stays. It pulls at you. Even when life gets loud. Even when you're tired. Even when you've convinced yourself you're not worthy. That's because the call of God isn't based on your feelings. It's based on your formation. God isn't asking if you feel ready. He's asking if you're willing. Because the truth is, calling doesn't wait for your comfort. It awakens you, often at the most inconvenient times. It disrupts your life because it's meant to realign your life. You were built to carry light. Light that reveals. Light that heals. Light that awakens others. But don't be surprised when that same light attracts attacks. Light exposes darkness. And darkness doesn't go quietly. That's why your journey feels harder. That's why the spiritual attacks have been stronger. That's why you felt like giving up more times than you can count. Because you weren't just made to survive. You were made to shift atmospheres. To bring heaven into places that have forgotten what truth feels like. And I want to speak directly to the moments you've doubted your own strength. When you sat alone at night and wondered if you were too broken to be used by God. When your past whispered that you were disqualified. When your failures tried to rewrite your future. Listen closely. Nothing in your story is wasted. Not the pain. Not the shame. Not the heartbreak. Every tear, every mistake, every wound. It's all part of the construction. God does not throw away broken pieces. He rebuilds temples from ashes. And you, my friend, are not being discarded. You are being designed. So walk boldly in your difference. Don't shrink. Don't apologize for the way you see the world. You were built for vision. Don't numb yourself to fit in. You were built to feel. Don't silence your voice to keep peace. You were built to speak truth in love, even when your voice shakes. Don't run from your gift. Embrace it. Refine it. Use it. Because your gift is not just for you. It's a key that unlocks something in others. And the world needs what's inside you, even if it doesn't know it yet. The truth is, you're not here by accident. You're here by assignment. Every moment of your life, every victory, every failure, every delay has been leading you to this realization: you were never broken. You were being built for a higher calling. The pain was shaping you. The isolation was training you. The rejection was protecting you. And the difference you carry? That's not a flaw. That's the fingerprint of heaven. So lift your head. Straighten your back. You were chosen for such a time as this. And now is the time to walk like it. The spiritual war. Why the world fears what it cannot understand. There is a reason why, when you begin to step into your light, the shadows seem to multiply. Why? When you finally start to believe in your purpose, the noise of the world grows louder. It's not your imagination. It's not coincidence. It's war. A spiritual war. And you, the chosen one, are not just a bystander in this battle. You are the target. Because the world doesn't just fear what it cannot control. It fears what it cannot comprehend. And you, carrying the frequency of heaven, were never meant to be understood by a world tuned to chaos. The moment you start operating in truth, you become a disruption. The moment you refuse to numb your soul or silence your discernment, you disturb systems that thrive on blindness. That's not just social tension, that's spiritual resistance. When you walk in a room and feel the atmosphere shift, that's not paranoia, that's perception. You're not imagining the heaviness. You're sensing the war that rages beyond what eyes can see. Because light always reveals what darkness tries to conceal. And light, when it enters a place long ruled by shadows, is rarely welcomed with applause. There are forces that benefit from your silence. There are patterns, generational, societal, spiritual, that tremble when someone like you refuses to play along. When you speak truth, it breaks cycles. When you live in alignment, it exposes the ones who are out of tune. When you walk in purpose, it convicts those who've settled. And not everyone wants to be awakened. Not everyone is ready to leave the comfort of their illusions. That's why they resist you. That's why they mock you. That's why they say you're too intense, too spiritual, too different. Because your presence is a mirror, and mirrors make people confront things they'd rather ignore. But don't mistake resistance for rejection. And don't confuse spiritual warfare with spiritual failure. The war is not proof that you're on the wrong path. It's evidence that you're finally on the right one. The enemy doesn't waste time with those who pose no threat. He goes after the ones carrying keys. The ones who open doors for others. The ones who ignite change without trying. You're not under attack because you're weak. You're under attack because your awakening is shaking the gates of hell. This world has been conditioned to praise conformity and fear consciousness. It teaches people to follow trends, not truth. To seek approval, not alignment. So when someone like you shows up, unapologetically aware, unwilling to compromise, you don't just challenge individuals. You challenge the entire system. And systems protect themselves. That's why the pushback feels so personal. That's why it hurts so deeply. Because you weren't just born into a world of flesh. You were born onto a battlefield of spirit. And the battlefield is not always dramatic. It's not always obvious. Sometimes the war shows up as confusion, doubt, isolation, fatigue. You'll find yourself questioning your own clarity, wondering if you made it all up. You'll feel misunderstood by friends, distanced from family, alienated even in rooms filled with people. That's the nature of spiritual warfare. It's subtle, psychological, emotional. It makes you question your own vision. But hear this clearly. If the enemy can't destroy you, he will try to distort your identity. Because he knows, if you ever truly realize who you are and what you carry, he won't be able to stop you. So he sends distractions dressed as opportunities. He surrounds you with noise to drown out God's whisper. He uses fear to make you doubt your gift and shame to make you hide your light. And if he can't get you to quit, he'll try to make you blend in. But you weren't born to blend in. You were born to set things apart, to be salt, to be light, to be a standard in a world that has lost its sense of truth. And let me be honest, it's hard. Carrying light in a dark world is not glamorous. It's gritty. It means being misunderstood. It means choosing integrity over popularity, stillness over noise, holiness over hype. It means saying no to what feeds your ego so you can say yes to what feeds your soul. It means staying awake when everyone else is asleep. And that kind of living will cost you. But it will also crown you. Because there is no elevation without resistance. There is no calling without conflict. And there is no light that shines without first being surrounded by darkness. So if you've been feeling the weight of the warfare, don't give up. Don't back down. You were built for this. Heaven knew the battle before it gave you the assignment. That's why your soul is wired for more. That's why your spirit is louder than your fear. That's why you're still standing, despite everything. You are a warrior dressed in human skin. A divine signal in a world lost in static. You don't just carry light, you are light. And light doesn't beg to be seen. It simply shows up and does what it was born to do: illuminate, expose, heal, lead. So stop explaining your calling to people who aren't called to understand it. Stop defending your light to those who benefit from your darkness. You weren't chosen to be accepted. You were chosen to be activated. And activation comes with warfare, but also with authority. You don't fight alone. Heaven backs you. Angels go before you. Grace surrounds you. And every scar you carry is not a symbol of defeat. It's a sign that you survived what was sent to destroy you. And you didn't just survive. You became stronger, wiser, louder, brighter. You are not just in a war. You are a weapon, a divine one. And every time you choose love over fear, truth over comfort, and purpose over popularity, you win. Every time you keep showing up when quitting would have been easier, you declare to hell, I know who I am. So rise up. Stand firm. You are not crazy. You are not weak. You are not alone. You are a chosen one in a spiritual war, and your victory has already been written. Embracing the calling, rise into your divine frequency. There comes a moment, after the pain, after the war, after the confusion, when the soul finally stops asking, why me? And begins to declare, yes, me. That moment is not born out of pride. It is born out of surrender. It is born in fire. It is born from the long nights you didn't think you'd survive, from the seasons you thought were breaking you when in truth, they were building you. That moment is the turning point, when you stop running from your difference and begin to walk in your design. That moment is the beginning of alignment. That moment is the rise into your divine frequency. You see, there's nothing wrong with your wiring. You were tuned to something sacred, something not everyone will hear, but those who are meant to will feel it when you speak, when you move, when you simply show up and stand in your truth. You carry a signal, a heavenly frequency, that disrupts what is fake and awakens what is asleep. That is not ego. That is energy. That is anointing. And it is time you stop hiding it. You were not placed on this earth just to survive, to work, to earn applause or approval, and then disappear. You were placed here to remember, to awaken, to carry the light of something eternal through the temporary chaos of this world. You were never meant to mimic the culture. You were meant to bring kingdom into it. And that calling, that frequency, it requires courage. Courage to stand when others bow. Courage to walk away from noise and walk into solitude. Courage to be misunderstood by the world and still feel understood by God. Courage to hear His voice above the crowd. Courage to protect your peace even when it costs you proximity. Courage to forgive when you'd rather retaliate. Courage to speak when your voice shakes. Courage to believe, even when you can't see the fruit yet. Because living at a higher frequency means living in constant alignment with the unseen. It means anchoring your decisions not in public opinion, but in divine instruction. It means no longer needing validation to take action. It means recognizing that your spiritual assignment is louder than your personal comfort. You've spent too long doubting the very things that make you powerful. Too long trying to normalize your difference, to fit into molds that were never made for you. Too long lowering your voice so others wouldn't feel small around your truth. But enough is enough. This is the hour to embrace the fire that has always lived inside you. This is the season to rise. To rise without explanation. To rise without apology. To rise with reverence for the one who chose you. Not when you were perfect, but when you were broken, questioning, doubting, and barely breathing. God chose you when no one else could see your worth. He appointed you not because you had all the answers, but because you were willing to ask the right questions. He didn't need your perfection. He needed your availability. And now it's time. Time to step into the fullness of your design. Time to speak the truth others only think in silence. Time to love without fear and lead without seeking applause. Time to stop shrinking around small minds and start walking like someone who is sent. You are a messenger, a healer, a vessel, a voice. You are the shift someone else has been praying for. And your obedience to your calling will unlock destinies you'll never even witness in this lifetime. That is the power of divine frequency. It echoes far beyond you. It awakens generations. It heals bloodlines. It disrupts patterns. It breaks chains not just from your life, but from the lives of those watching in silence. This is not about fame. This is not about influence. This is about impact. And impact begins the moment you decide to be fully, unshakably you. The you that heaven designed, not the you that culture expects. It begins when you stop performing and start vibrating at the level your soul has been craving. It begins when you stop chasing platforms and start standing on the promises of God. It begins when you stop looking for signs and start becoming one. And no, it won't be easy. You will lose people. You will outgrow environments. You will be misunderstood, misquoted, and sometimes even mistreated. But you will also become unshakable, unstoppable, untouchable by fear. Because when you live in alignment, you stop reacting to the world and start responding to heaven. So let the world call you strange. Let them whisper. Let them question. You are not here to be understood. You are here to be obeyed by the voice of God that whispers through your spirit. You are here to be light in a dimming world, to be clarity in a fog of confusion, to be love where there is hate, and stillness where there is noise. And every time you choose to vibrate higher, every time you reject drama, decline ego, dismiss fear, you rise a little more. You ascend in spirit. You become less attached to the opinions of man and more devoted to the voice of God. And in that rising, you become magnetic. People may not understand you, but they will feel the weight of your presence. And the ones meant to walk with you, they'll rise too. You don't have to beg the world to make space for you. Heaven already did. The seat has always been yours. The crown already fits. The oil has already been poured. It's time to walk like someone who's been appointed, not someone still waiting for approval. It's time to live like someone who remembers who they are. So rise into your divine frequency. Live from your soul, not your wounds. Walk with light. Speak with purpose. Love with intention. And never again apologize for being the one who was wired differently, for being the one who was chosen.